A single father working as a maintenance employee is publicly accused by a billionaire CEO of stealing confidential documents right before her lavish wedding. He loses his job, his reputation, and nearly loses custody of his son. But as he begins digging into the evidence, he discovers he's not the thief. He's a pawn in a massive fraud scheme. The truth is finally exposed not in a courtroom, but right in the middle of the million-dollar wedding of the person who destroyed his life. Follow the story to the end. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Nathan Cole had been awake since 4 in the morning, same as every other weekday for the past 6 years. He stood in the narrow kitchen of his apartment, frying eggs in a pan that had seen better days, while his 7-year-old son, Jamie, sat at the table drawing rockets with a crayon that was worn down to a nub. "Dad, can we get the big box of crayons?" Jamie asked without looking up. Nathan flipped the eggs. "Maybe next paycheck, buddy." "You always say next paycheck, and I always mean it." Jamie grinned at that, and Nathan felt the familiar ache in his chest, the one that came from loving someone so much it hurt. The apartment was small, the furniture was secondhand, and the walls were thin enough that they could hear Mrs. Park's television through the plaster every night. But it was theirs, clean, organized, safe. Nathan plated the eggs and set them in front of Jamie, then poured himself a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt water. He didn't care. Coffee was coffee. "Eat up. Bus comes in 20 minutes. Jamie shoveled eggs into his mouth while Nathan packed his lunch, peanut butter and jelly, apple slices, a juice box. Nothing fancy. But it was made with care, and that mattered. By the time Jamie's bus pulled up outside, Nathan had already zipped the boy's jacket, checked his backpack twice, and kissed the top of his head. "Love you, kid." "Love you too, Dad." Nathan watched the bus pull away, then grabbed his own bag and headed out the door. He worked maintenance at Vanguard Technologies, one of the biggest tech companies in the state. It was the kind of place where people in suits walked past him without making eye contact, where his name badge said facilities instead of his actual name half the time, where he fixed the things that broke so the people who mattered never had to think about them. He didn't mind. The pay was steady, the hours were predictable, and it kept Jamie fed. The morning shift started at 7. Nathan clocked in, grabbed his tool belt, and got to work. First stop was the third-floor break room, where someone had jammed the coffee machine again. He pulled it apart, cleaned out the grounds that had been packed in like cement, and put it back together in under 10 minutes. "Thanks, Nathan," one of the analysts said as she poured herself a cup. He nodded. She didn't wait for a response. By 10, he'd fixed 2 bathroom sinks, replaced a flickering light panel, and cleared a jammed paper shredder in the executive wing. It was quiet up there, carpeted. The kind of quiet that cost money. He was tightening a loose door hinge when he heard heels clicking down the hallway. He glanced up and saw her, Vanessa Hale. She was 34, blonde, and moved like someone who'd never been told no in her life. CEO of Vanguard Technologies. She wore a white suit that probably cost more than Nathan's rent, and her assistant trailed behind her with a tablet, rattling off appointments. Nathan kept his head down and focused on the hinge. "Reschedule the 2 o'clock, Vanessa said without breaking stride. "And confirm the venue for Saturday. I want everything locked in." "Already done," the assistant replied. Vanessa stopped a few feet away from Nathan. He could feel her looking at him. "Maintenance?" He straightened up. "Yes, ma'am." She studied him for a moment, then glanced at the door. "Is that going to take long?" "Just finished." "Good." She walked past him without another word, her assistant clicking along behind her. Nathan watched them disappear around the corner, then packed up his tools and moved on. That was the thing about working at Vanguard. People like Vanessa Hale lived in a different world. They didn't see him, didn't think about him, didn't care. And that was fine. He wasn't there to be noticed. He was there to work. But 3 days later, everything changed. It started with a meeting. Nathan had just finished replacing a busted outlet in the 4th-floor conference room when his supervisor, Greg, found him in the hallway. "Hey, Nathan, need you in HR." Nathan frowned. "What for?" "Don't know. They just said to send you up." Nathan's gut twisted. HR didn't call maintenance workers in for casual chats. He wiped his hands on his pants and followed Greg to the elevator. The HR floor was sterile. White walls, glass doors, motivational posters that said things like integrity and excellence in bold letters. Nathan sat in a chair outside the main office and waited. After 10 minutes, the door opened and a woman in a gray blazer gestured for him to come in. "Mr. Cole?" He nodded and stepped inside. There were 3 people in the room: the HR woman, whose name he didn't catch, a man in a suit he didn't recognize, and Vanessa Hale. Nathan's stomach dropped. "Have a seat," the HR woman said. He sat. The chair was too soft, the kind that made you feel like you were sinking. "Mr. Cole, we need to ask you some questions about a security incident." "Security incident?" The man in the suit leaned forward. 3 days ago, confidential company files were accessed from a server in the executive wing. The access logs trace back to a terminal in the maintenance office. Nathan's mouth went dry. "I don't know anything about that." The logs show the access occurred at 9:47 p.m. on Tuesday. "You were on shift that night." "I was fixing a water heater in the basement. I didn't go near any computers." Vanessa spoke for the first time, her voice calm and cold. "The terminal requires a badge scan to unlock. Your badge was used." "That's impossible." "Is it?" She tilted her head slightly. "Or did you think no one would notice?" Nathan's pulse hammered in his ears. "I didn't take anything. I don't even know what files you're talking about." The HR woman slid a folder across the table. "These are the access logs, your badge, your timestamp." Nathan opened the folder and stared at the printouts. There it was. His badge number, his name, a timestamp that put him at a computer terminal he'd never touched. "This is a mistake," he said quietly. "Mistakes don't falsify server logs," the man in the suit replied. Vanessa stood. "Mr. Cole, I don't know what you intended to do with those files, but you've put this company at risk. We're days away from finalizing a major merger, and you've compromised sensitive financial data." "I didn't save it." She looked at the HR woman. "Terminate his employment, effective immediately." Nathan's chest tightened. "Wait, you can't just—" "We can, and we are." Vanessa's eyes were flat. "Security will escort you out. If we find evidence that you sold or distributed those files, we'll pursue criminal charges." He stood, his legs shaky. "I have a son. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from us." The words hit him like a slap. He wanted to argue, wanted to shout, wanted to demand they look at the footage, check the logs again, do something. But the man in the suit was already holding the door open, and 2 security guards were waiting in the hallway. They walked him down to the maintenance office, watched him clean out his locker, and escorted him through the lobby. People stared, whispered. Nathan kept his head down and walked out into the parking lot, his tool bag slung over his shoulder and his badge left behind on the HR woman's desk. He sat in his truck for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Then he drove home. Jamie was at a friend's house when Nathan got back to the apartment. He sat on the couch and stared at the wall, his mind racing. He hadn't stolen anything. He hadn't touched that terminal. He didn't even know where it was. But someone had used his badge. He pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. They had $1,847 in savings. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Jamie's after-school program cost $200 a month. Groceries, utilities, insurance. He did the math in his head and felt the walls start to close in. By the time Jamie came home, Nathan had pulled himself together enough to smile. "Hey kid, how was Danny's house?" "Good. We played Spaceship." "That's great." Jamie dropped his backpack by the door and looked at Nathan. "You're home early." "Yeah, slow day at work." Jamie didn't push it. He went to his room, and Nathan sat back down on the couch, staring at his phone. He needed to figure out what happened. He needed to prove he didn't do it, but he didn't even know where to start. The next morning, Nathan woke up to 17 missed calls. He checked his phone and saw messages from people he hadn't heard from in years. Former coworkers, acquaintances, even his ex-wife's sister. He opened one of the messages. "Is it true?" He scrolled to another. "Saw the news. Can't believe you do that." "News?" Nathan opened a browser and typed in his name. The first result made his stomach turn. Vanguard Technologies employee accused of corporate theft ahead of major merger. He clicked the link. The article was short, clean, and brutal. It didn't name him directly, but it didn't have to. It described a maintenance worker who had accessed confidential files and put the company's upcoming merger at risk. It quoted Vanessa Hale, who called the incident a betrayal of trust and praised the security team for catching it quickly. Nathan's hand shook as he scrolled through the comments. People like that should be in jail. Probably sold the files to a competitor. Single dad, huh? Great role model. He closed the browser and dropped the phone on the table. Jamie walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. What's for breakfast? Nathan forced a smile. Pancakes. Over the next 2 days, Nathan applied to 12 jobs. He heard back from none of them. He checked his email obsessively, refreshed job sites, called in favors from people he used to work with. Most didn't answer. The ones who did were polite but distant. Sorry, man, we're not hiring right now. I'll keep you in mind. Good luck. On the third day, Nathan got a call from his ex-wife. We need to talk, Lisa said. Her voice was tight, controlled. Nathan knew that tone. It meant she'd already made up her mind about something. What's going on? He asked. I saw the article. It's not true. I'm filing for a custody review. Nathan's blood went cold. What? You lost your job, Nathan. You're accused of stealing. I'm not going to sit back and let Jamie live in that kind of environment. I didn't steal anything. Then why did they fire you? Because someone set me up. There was a long pause. Do you hear yourself right now? Lisa, I'm telling you the truth. I didn't do it. I don't care what you think happened. I care about Jamie, and right now you're not stable. I've been stable for 6 years, and now you're unemployed and under investigation. I'm not taking chances. She hung up. Nathan sat on the edge of his bed, his phone still pressed to his ear, listening to dead air. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Nathan sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. He wrote down everything he could remember from the last week, where he'd been, what he'd fixed, who he'd seen, Tuesday night, the night the files were supposedly accessed. He'd clocked in at 3 p.m., spent the first 2 hours fixing a clogged drain on the second floor. Then he'd gotten a call about the water heater in the basement. It had taken him 3 hours to fix. By the time he'd finished, it was after 9. He remembered clocking out at 9:52 p.m., but the log said his badge had been used at 9:47 p.m., 5 minutes before he clocked out. He couldn't have been in 2 places at once. Nathan pulled out his phone and called Greg. Hey man, I know this is weird, but I need a favor. Greg sighed. Nathan, I can't help you. They told us not to talk to you. I just need to know if there's security footage from Tuesday night, basement level, near the maintenance closet. I don't have access to that. Can you ask someone who does? They're not going to give it to you. Greg, please, I didn't do this. There was a long pause. I believe you, but I can't stick my neck out. I've got a family too. He hung up. Nathan set the phone down and stared at his notebook. Someone had used his badge. Someone had framed him. And whoever it was, they'd done it carefully. He needed proof. He needed to figure out who had access to his badge, who had a reason to set him up, and how the hell he was going to prove it before Lisa took Jamie away. The next day, Nathan went back to Vanguard. He didn't go inside. He parked across the street and watched the building from his truck. He saw people coming and going, employees, delivery drivers, security guards. He watched the side entrance where the maintenance staff usually came in, and he watched the front entrance where the executives parked. At 11 a.m., Vanessa Hale arrived in a black sedan. She stepped out in a navy dress and oversized sunglasses, her assistant trailing behind her with 2 garment bags. Nathan watched her disappear into the building. Then he drove home. That night, Jamie asked him a question that broke his heart. Dad, are we going to be okay? They were sitting on the couch, watching a movie Jamie had seen 100 times. Nathan had been staring at the screen without seeing it. He looked down at his son. Yeah, kid, we're going to be fine. Are you sure? Nathan pulled him close. I'm sure. Jamie leaned into him and Nathan held him tight, trying to ignore the knot in his chest that told him he was lying. The next morning, Nathan got a call from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Cole? Yeah. This is David Ortiz. I'm an attorney. I represent Vanguard Technologies. Nathan's stomach twisted. Okay. We're moving forward with a civil lawsuit against you for theft of proprietary information. You'll be served with papers in the next few days. I didn't steal anything. That's not my concern. I'm calling as a courtesy to let you know we intend to pursue full damages. I don't have anything to give you. Then I suggest you find a lawyer. The line went dead. Nathan sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. They weren't just firing him, they were coming after him, and he had no idea how to fight back. For the next 3 days, Nathan barely slept. He spent his nights going over everything he could remember, writing down names, times, places. He searched online for anything he could find about Vanguard's merger, about Vanessa Hale, about the files that were supposedly stolen. Most of it was locked behind paywalls or buried in corporate press releases. But he found a few things. The merger was big. Vanguard was being acquired by a European conglomerate called Helix Group for $1.2 billion. The deal had been in the works for over a year, and it was supposed to close in 2 weeks. Vanessa Hale was the face of the deal. She'd been interviewed in 3 different business magazines, calling it the defining moment of her career. Nathan kept digging. He found an article from 6 months ago about internal tensions at Vanguard. Anonymous sources claimed there were disagreements between Vanessa and the board about the company's financials. One source said the numbers didn't add up. The article had been buried quickly, and no follow-up pieces ever ran. Nathan saved the link. Then he found something else, a small mention in a tech blog about a whistleblower lawsuit that had been filed against Vanguard 2 years ago. The case had been settled out of court, and the details were sealed. But the lawsuit had accused Vanguard of inflating revenue projections and hiding debt. Nathan sat back in his chair. If the company had been caught lying about financials before, what was stopping them from doing it again? And if someone was trying to cover up financial fraud before a billion-dollar merger, what better way to do it than to pin the whole thing on a maintenance worker no one would believe? Nathan didn't have proof. He didn't have access to the files. He didn't even have a job. But he had a theory, and he wasn't going to let it go. The next morning, he dropped Jamie off at school and drove to the public library. He spent 4 hours on a computer, searching for anything he could find about Helix Group, the merger, and Vanessa Hale's inner circle. He found names, executives, board members, investors, and then he found something that made his pulse quicken, a photo from a charity gala 3 months ago. Vanessa Hale stood in the center, smiling for the camera. Next to her was a man in a tuxedo, Marcus Trent, Vanguard's CFO. And standing just behind them, partially obscured by someone's shoulder, was a woman Nathan recognized. Her name was Claire Dawson. She worked in IT. Nathan had fixed her office computer twice. He zoomed in on the photo. Claire wasn't smiling. She was looking at something off camera, her expression tight. Nathan saved the image and kept searching. 20 minutes later, he found another photo. Same gala, different angle. This time Claire was in the foreground, and she was talking to someone Nathan didn't recognize. A man in his 50s with silver hair and a tailored suit. Nathan ran a reverse image search on the man's face. His name was Richard Kellerman. He was a senior partner at an investment firm that had ties to Helix Group. Nathan sat back and stared at the screen. Claire worked in IT. She would have had access to the server logs. She could have cloned his badge. She could have planted the evidence. But why? He didn't have an answer yet, but he was starting to see the shape of something bigger. That night, Nathan called Claire. He'd found her number in the company directory, one of the few things he'd saved before they wiped his access. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up. Hello? Claire, it's Nathan Cole. There was a pause. Nathan, I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Another pause. Why are you calling? I need to ask you something. I don't think that's a good idea. Claire, I didn't steal those files. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me the truth. Did someone ask you to plant evidence against me? The line went silent. Claire? I can't talk about this. Why not? Because I could lose my job. You already helped them destroy mine, her voice cracked. I didn't have a choice. Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. What do you mean? They told me if I didn't do it, they'd fire me. They said I'd never work in tech again. Who told you that? I can't. Claire. Who? She was crying now. Marcus. Marcus Trent. He said it was just a technical adjustment. He said no one would get hurt. Nathan's heart pounded. What did you do? I cloned your badge. I used it to access the server. I logged in under your credentials and downloaded the files. Why? Because they needed someone to blame. The files. She stopped herself. What about the files? They're not stolen. They're evidence. Evidence of fraud. Marcus has been cooking the books for years, and Vanessa knew about it. The merger's based on fake financials. If Helix Group found out, the whole deal would collapse. Nathan closed his eyes. So they framed me to bury it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but I can't testify. I can't go on record. If I do, they'll destroy me. They already destroyed me. Claire was sobbing now. I know, and I hate myself for it. But I have student loans, I have rent. I can't lose everything. Nathan took a breath. Did you keep copies of anything? What? The files, the logs, anything that proves what really happened. She hesitated. I kept a backup, just in case, but I'll never use it. Where is it? Nathan. Where? It's on a flash drive, hidden in my apartment. I need it. No, absolutely not. Claire, they're suing me. My ex-wife is trying to take my son. If I don't prove what happened, I lose everything. She was quiet for a long time. I'll think about it, she finally said. Then she hung up. Nathan sat in the dark, his phone still in his hand, and felt something shift inside him. He wasn't helpless anymore. He had a lead, and he wasn't going to stop until he burned the whole thing down. Claire didn't call back. Nathan waited 2 days, checking his phone every 10 minutes, pacing the apartment while Jamie watched cartoons and asked questions Nathan couldn't answer. By the 3rd day, he realized she wasn't going to reach out. She'd made her choice, and it wasn't him. He couldn't blame her. She had her own life to protect. But that didn't make it any easier to swallow. He was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his laptop screen, when Jamie came in with his backpack. Dad, I need lunch money. Nathan looked up. What happened to the lunch I packed? Tommy said his mom gave him $10 and he got pizza. Can I get pizza? Nathan pulled out his wallet and counted the bills inside. $23. That had to last until he figured out his next move. Not today, buddy. Jamie's face fell. Why not? Because we're saving money right now. Are we poor? The question hit Nathan harder than it should have. He closed his wallet and looked at his son. We're fine. I just need you to eat the lunch I make, okay? Jamie nodded slowly, but Nathan could see the doubt in his eyes. Kids weren't stupid. They picked up on things. After Jamie left for school, Nathan opened his laptop and went back to the photos he'd saved from the gala. He studied every face, every detail, looking for something he'd missed. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered it. Hello? It's Claire. Nathan sat up straight. I didn't think you'd call. I shouldn't be calling. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying again. But I can't sleep. I keep thinking about your son. Claire, meet me tomorrow, noon. There's a coffee shop on 5th and Brennan. I'll bring the drive. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm only doing this because I can't live with myself if I don't. She paused. And Nathan, come alone. If anyone follows you, I'm gone. The line went dead. Nathan sat back in his chair and exhaled. He had less than 24 hours to figure out what he was going to do with the evidence once he had it. A flash drive full of fraudulent financials wasn't going to be enough on its own. He needed someone who could verify it, someone who understood corporate fraud and knew how to make it stick. He spent the rest of the day researching lawyers, journalists, anyone who might take him seriously. Most of the lawyers he found wanted retainers he couldn't afford. The journalists either ignored his emails or sent back polite rejections. By midnight, he'd gotten nowhere. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of Mrs. Park's television through the wall. He thought about Jamie, about Lisa's threat to take him away, about the lawsuit that was coming and the bills he couldn't pay. He thought about Vanessa Hale in her white suit, looking at him like he was dirt on her shoe. And he thought about what Claire had said. They needed someone to blame. He wasn't going to be that person anymore. The next morning, Nathan dropped Jamie at school and drove to 5th and Brennan. The coffee shop was small, tucked between a dry cleaner and a cell phone repair store. He parked across the street and waited. At 11:58, Claire walked in. She looked different than he remembered, thinner, tired. She wore a gray hoodie and jeans, and she kept her head down as she ordered a coffee and sat at a table in the back corner. Nathan gave her 2 minutes, then went inside. She didn't look up when he sat down across from her. You weren't followed? She asked quietly. No. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. She set it on the table between them but didn't let go. This is everything, she said. Server logs, financial records, emails between Marcus and Vanessa, proof that they've been inflating revenue and hiding debt for 3 years. Nathan stared at the drive. Why did they frame me specifically?
Because you were convenient. You had access to the building. You worked late shifts. No one would question it. She finally looked at him, and her eyes were red. And because you didn't matter to them. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Claire pushed the drive toward him. If you use this, they'll know it came from me. I'll lose everything. Then why are you giving it to me?
Because what they did to you was wrong, and because I'm tired of being scared. She stood up, her coffee untouched. Don't contact me again. I can't help you anymore. She walked out before he could say anything else. Nathan picked up the drive and slipped it into his pocket. Then he sat there for another 10 minutes, drinking a cup of coffee he didn't want, trying to process what he'd just been handed. He had the evidence. Now he needed to figure out how to use it. He drove to the library and plugged the flash drive into one of the public computers. The files loaded slowly, and Nathan scanned through them, his pulse quickening with every document. Spreadsheets showing inflated revenue projections, emails where Marcus Trent discussed adjusting the numbers before board meetings, messages between Vanessa and Marcus about keeping certain transactions off the official books. And then he found something that made his blood run cold. An email from Vanessa to Marcus, dated 2 weeks before Nathan was fired. We need a fall guy before the merger audit. Someone low level. Someone no one will defend. Marcus had replied an hour later. I have someone in mind. Maintenance, works nights. No one will miss him. Nathan read the email 3 times, his hands shaking. They'd picked him out like he was nothing, like he was a prop in a play they were directing. He copied the files onto a second drive, then deleted his browsing history and left the library. Back in his truck, he sat in the parking lot and tried to think. He had proof now, but proof didn't mean anything if no one saw it. He needed leverage. He needed a moment where the truth couldn't be ignored. And then it hit him. Vanessa's wedding. It was in 2 days. He'd seen the articles about it online, society pages calling it the event of the season. A luxury estate outside the city. 200 guests. Investors, executives, politicians, everyone who mattered in Vanessa's world would be there. If he could get inside, if he could expose the truth in front of all those people, there'd be no way to bury it. But getting inside wasn't going to be easy. Nathan drove home and opened his laptop. He found the wedding venue's website and studied the layout. The estate was private, gated, with security at every entrance. Guests needed invitations. Staff needed clearance. He couldn't walk in through the front door. But he'd spent 6 years working maintenance. He knew how buildings worked. He knew where the service entrances were, where the blind spots were, how to move through a space without being noticed. He pulled up blueprints for the estate, public records from a permit application filed 3 years ago. He studied the floor plan, memorized the exits, and mapped out a route from the service entrance to the main ballroom. It wasn't foolproof, but it was a plan. That night, after Jamie went to bed, Nathan sat at the kitchen table and wrote out everything he was going to say. He practiced it in his head, running through the words until they felt solid. He wasn't going to yell. He wasn't going to beg. He was going to stand in front of Vanessa Hale and everyone who mattered to her, and he was going to tell the truth. And then he was going to let them decide what to do with it. The next day, Nathan didn't tell Jamie where he was going. He just said he had an errand to run, and he'd be back by dinner. He drove to a thrift store and bought a white dress shirt, black pants, and a plain black tie. It wasn't a perfect match for catering staff, but it was close enough. Then he went to a print shop and made copies of the most damning documents from the flash drive. He put them in a manila envelope and tucked it under the seat of his truck. By the time he got home, his hands were shaking. Jamie was at the table, coloring. Hey, kid. Jamie looked up. Where'd you go? Just had to pick up some things. Can we get pizza tonight? Nathan smiled. Yeah, we can get pizza. Jamie's face lit up, and Nathan felt his chest tighten. He knelt down next to his son and pulled him into a hug. I love you, buddy. I love you too, Dad. Nathan held him for a long time, trying to memorize the way it felt. The wedding was the next day, a Saturday. Nathan woke up before dawn and couldn't fall back asleep. He made coffee and sat in the dark, going over the plan one more time. He'd drive to the estate early, before most of the guests arrived. He'd park a few blocks away and walk in through the service entrance. Once inside, he'd find a quiet spot and wait until the reception started. Then he'd make his move. It was risky. It was probably stupid, but it was the only chance he had. By the time Jamie woke up, Nathan had already showered and dressed. He wore jeans and a jacket, the white shirt and tie folded in a bag in his truck. "Where are you going?" Jamie asked, rubbing his eyes. "I've got something I need to do today. Mrs. Park's going to watch you." Jamie frowned. "Is it about work?" "Sort of." "Are you getting your job back?" Nathan crouched down so they were eye to eye. "I'm going to try to make things right, okay?" Jamie nodded, but he looked worried. Nathan kissed his forehead. "Be good for Mrs. Park." "I will." Nathan dropped Jamie off next door, then got in his truck and headed for the estate. The drive took 40 minutes. The estate was outside the city, surrounded by hills and vineyards. Nathan parked on a side road a quarter-mile away and walked the rest of the way. He could see the gates in the distance, white stone pillars, security guards checking cars as they pulled up. Nathan circled around to the east side where the service road led to the back of the property. There was a chain-link fence, but it was old and loose in a few spots. He found a gap near the tree line and slipped through. Inside, the estate was massive. Manicured lawns, a fountain in the center courtyard, white tents set up for the ceremony. Staff in black uniforms moved back and forth, carrying chairs, setting up tables, arranging flowers. Nathan stayed low and moved along the tree line until he reached the service entrance. The door was propped open with a crate, and two workers in white shirts were unloading boxes from a catering truck. He waited until they went inside, then slipped in behind them. The kitchen was chaos. Chefs shouting orders, servers rushing back and forth with trays. Nathan grabbed a clipboard from a counter and kept his head down, moving through the kitchen like he belonged there. No one stopped him. He found a hallway that led away from the kitchen and followed it to a storage room. Inside, there were extra linens, folded chairs, and a rack of staff uniforms. Nathan changed into the white shirt and tie, tucked the envelope of documents into his waistband under his shirt, and stepped back into the hallway. He could hear music now. The ceremony had started. Nathan made his way toward the ballroom, staying close to the walls, avoiding eye contact with anyone who passed him. He reached a set of double doors and cracked them open just enough to see inside. The ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, long tables covered in white linens and gold accents, a stage at the far end where a string quartet played softly. And at the center of it all, standing under an arch of white roses, was Vanessa Hale. She wore a gown that looked like it cost more than Nathan's truck. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup flawless. She smiled as the officiant spoke, holding hands with a man Nathan didn't recognize, tall, tanned, expensive-looking. The guests sat in rows of white chairs, dressed in suits and gowns, watching the ceremony with polite smiles. Nathan felt his pulse quicken. This was it. He waited until the officiant pronounced them married. The crowd applauded. Vanessa kissed her new husband, and they walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, while the quartet played and the guests stood and clapped. The reception started immediately. Servers moved through the room with champagne and appetizers. Guests mingled, laughing and shaking hands. Nathan stayed near the back, watching, waiting for the right moment. Then he saw Marcus Trent. The CFO stood near the bar, talking to a man in a gray suit. He looked relaxed, confident. He raised his glass and said something that made the other man laugh. Nathan's jaw tightened. He moved closer, weaving between tables, keeping his head down. He could hear bits of conversation as he passed. Beautiful ceremony. She looks stunning. This merger's going to change everything. Nathan reached the edge of the stage and stopped. His heart was hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. He pulled the envelope from under his shirt and climbed the steps. The room didn't notice at first. The quartet was still playing. People were still talking, drinking, laughing. Nathan walked to the center of the stage and picked up the microphone. The music stopped. Heads turned. Vanessa, standing near the front table with her husband, looked up. Her smile froze. Nathan's voice came out steadier than he expected. "I'm sorry to interrupt." The room went silent. Nathan looked out at the crowd. 200 faces staring at him, confused, annoyed, curious. He found Vanessa's eyes and held them. "My name is Nathan Cole. 2 weeks ago, I was accused of stealing confidential files from Vanguard Technologies. I lost my job, my reputation, almost lost my son. Vanessa's face went pale.
But I didn't steal anything, Nathan continued. I was framed, and the people who framed me are in this room right now.
Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus Trent stepped forward, his face red. Security! Get him out of here! Nathan raised the envelope. This is proof. Financial records, emails, evidence that Vanguard's CFO and CEO have been committing fraud for years, inflating revenue, hiding debt, lying to investors. Vanessa's husband turned to her. What is he talking about? She didn't answer. Nathan pulled the documents from the envelope and held them up. The merger you're celebrating tonight, it's built on fake numbers. The financials Helix Group is buying into don't exist, and when they find out, this whole thing collapses. Security guards were moving toward the stage now, but Nathan kept talking. They needed someone to blame before the audit uncovered the truth, so they picked me, a maintenance worker, someone no one would believe, someone who didn't matter. He locked eyes with Vanessa. But I matter, and the truth matters. The guards reached the stage. One of them grabbed Nathan's arm, but he didn't resist. He dropped the documents, and they scattered across the stage, spilling onto the floor below. Guests leaned forward, picking them up, reading. Vanessa's voice cut through the room. He's lying. He's a criminal. Don't listen to him. But Nathan could see it in her face, the cracks forming, the panic setting in. Marcus tried to step forward, but someone in the crowd called out. These emails have your name on them, Marcus. Another voice. This says revenue was inflated by 40%. There are payoffs listed here, offshore accounts. The room erupted, voices overlapping, people shouting questions, investors pulling out their phones. Vanessa's husband stared at her. Vanessa, what the hell is this? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The security guards dragged Nathan off the stage, but he didn't fight. He'd said what he needed to say. As they pulled him toward the exit, he looked back one last time. Vanessa stood frozen in the center of the ballroom, her perfect wedding falling apart around her. Guests were leaving. Investors were arguing. Her husband had stepped away from her, his face a mixture of shock and anger, and Marcus Trent was nowhere to be seen. The guard shoved Nathan out a side door and threw him onto the gravel driveway. One of them pointed toward the gate. Get out! Now! Nathan stood, brushed himself off, and walked. He made it to his truck and sat behind the wheel, his hands still shaking. He didn't know what happened next. He didn't know if anyone would believe him. He didn't know if the documents would be enough. But he'd done it. He told the truth. And for the first time in 2 weeks, he could breathe. He started the engine and drove home. When he walked into the apartment, Jamie was on the couch, watching cartoons. Mrs. Park had already gone home. Jamie looked up. Did you make things right? Nathan sat down next to him and pulled him close. I think so, kid. Jamie leaned into him. Good. Nathan closed his eyes and held his son, and for a moment the weight he'd been carrying didn't feel so heavy anymore. His phone buzzed an hour later. Unknown number again. He answered. Hello? Mr. Cole, this is Amanda Cross. I'm a reporter with the Sentinel. I was at the wedding today. Nathan's heart skipped. Okay. I'd like to talk to you about what you said about the documents. Are you going to run the story? If the evidence checks out, yes. But I need to verify everything first. Can we meet? Nathan glanced at Jamie, who was half asleep on the couch. When? Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. There's a diner on Oakwood. Do you know it? I'll find it. Good. Bring everything you have. She hung up. Nathan set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't over yet. But maybe, just maybe, it was starting to turn. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the wedding in his mind. The look on Vanessa's face when he'd said her name. The way the room had shifted from celebration to chaos in under 5 minutes. The documents scattered across the stage like evidence at a crime scene. He kept waiting for the police to show up, for someone to bang on his door and drag him out in handcuffs. But the hours passed, and no one came. By the time the sun came up, he'd convinced himself that maybe, just maybe, he'd done the right thing. Jamie woke up at 7, groggy and confused about why Nathan was already dressed. Are we going somewhere? I've got a meeting. Mrs. Park's going to take you to the park. Jamie rubbed his eyes. Is it about your job? Nathan knelt down and looked at him. It's about fixing what happened, okay? Jamie nodded, but Nathan could see the worry in his face. Kids always knew when something was wrong, even when you tried to hide it. Nathan dropped Jamie off next door, then drove to the diner on Oakwood. It was a small place, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who called everyone on. He ordered coffee and sat in a booth near the back, watching the door. Amanda Cross walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. She was younger than Nathan expected, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a ponytail and a leather bag slung over her shoulder. She spotted him immediately and slid into the booth across from him. "Nathan Cole?" He nodded. She pulled out a notebook and a pen. "I'm going to record this if that's okay with you." "Fine." She set her phone on the table and hit record. "Let's start with what happened yesterday. You crashed a wedding and accused the bride of corporate fraud. Walk me through it." Nathan took a breath and told her everything. The firing, the accusations, the evidence Claire had given him, the emails, the financial records, the decision to go to the wedding because it was the only place where the truth couldn't be buried. Amanda listened without interrupting, taking notes as he spoke. When he finished, she sat back and studied him. "You realize how this sounds, right?" "I know how it sounds." A maintenance worker accuses a billionaire CEO of fraud with no legal representation, no official investigation, and no backup plan. It sounds desperate. I was desperate. She tapped her pen against the notebook. "But you have documents." Nathan pulled the flash drive from his pocket and set it on the table. "Everything's on here. Emails between Vanessa Hale and Marcus Trent. Spreadsheets showing inflated revenue, proof they've been lying to investors for years." Amanda picked up the drive and turned it over in her hands. "How did you get this?" "Someone on the inside gave it to me." "Who?" "I can't tell you that. If I'm going to run this story, I need to verify the source. The source doesn't want to be named. She's scared. And if Vanguard finds out who she is, they'll destroy her the same way they tried to destroy me." Amanda frowned. "Then I need to verify the documents independently. I'll need time to go through them, cross-reference the data, talk to financial experts." "How long?" "A few days, maybe a week." Nathan's stomach dropped. "I don't have a week. My ex-wife is filing for custody. There's a lawsuit coming. If this doesn't go public soon, I lose everything." Amanda leaned forward. "I understand that. But if I publish a story without verifying the facts, Vanguard's lawyers will bury me and you both. We do this right, or we don't do it at all." Nathan clenched his jaw. He wanted to argue, to push, to make her understand that time wasn't on his side, but he knew she was right. "Fine," he said, "but keep me updated." "I will." She pocketed the flash drive and stood. "One more thing. After what you did yesterday, you're going to have a target on your back. Vanguard's not going to sit around and let this play out quietly. If I were you, I'd be careful." "I've been careful my whole life. It didn't help." Amanda's expression softened. "Then maybe it's time to stop being careful and start being smart." She left the diner and Nathan sat alone, staring at his cold coffee. He drove home and spent the rest of the day trying to distract himself. He cleaned the apartment, fixed a leaky faucet, played with Jamie. But his mind kept drifting back to the flash drive, to Amanda, to the question of whether he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. That evening, his phone rang. It was Greg, his old supervisor from Vanguard. "Nathan, what the hell did you do?" Nathan's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" "It's all over the office. People are saying you showed up at Vanessa's wedding and accused her of fraud. Security's been asking questions. HR's going through records. They're trying to figure out how you got in." "Did they say anything else?" "They're pissed, like really pissed. Marcus Trent hasn't been in the office since yesterday. Vanessa's holed up in her penthouse. The board's holding emergency meetings." Nathan felt a flicker of satisfaction. "Good." "Good?" "Nathan, these people don't play around. If they think you're a threat, they're going to come after you hard." "Let them," Greg sighed. "I'm serious, man. Watch your back." The line went dead. Nathan set the phone down and stared at the wall. He'd lit the fuse. Now all he could do was wait for the explosion. The next morning, Nathan woke up to a text from Lisa. "We need to talk. Call me." He dialed her number, his stomach tight. "What's going on?" he asked. "I saw the news." Nathan frowned. "What news?" "There's an article online about you, About Vanguard. Nathan opened his laptop and searched his name. The first result made his chest tighten. Wedding crasher or whistleblower? Fired Vanguard employee disrupts CEO's reception with fraud allegations. The article was on a local news site, written by a freelance journalist Nathan had never heard of. It wasn't Amanda's piece, but it covered the basics. The wedding, the accusations, the documents. Nathan scrolled through the comments. Finally, someone standing up to these corporate crooks. This guy's either a hero or completely insane. Where's the proof? Anyone can make accusations. Lisa's voice cut through. Nathan, what were you thinking? I was thinking I needed to clear my name. By crashing a wedding? Are you out of your mind? I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. And now you've made yourself look unstable. Do you know what this does to my custody case? Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. This isn't about you. It's about Jamie, and right now you're making it harder for me to believe he's safe with you. I'm doing this for him. No, you're doing this for yourself, and you're dragging all of us down with you. She hung up before he could respond. Nathan sat at the table, staring at the screen, feeling the walls close in again. Over the next 2 days, the story picked up momentum. More articles appeared online. A business blog ran a piece questioning Vanguard's financial disclosures. A podcast covered the wedding incident, calling it the corporate scandal of the year. But none of it was Amanda's story. None of it had the documents. None of it had the proof. Nathan called her 3 times. She didn't answer. On the 4th day, she finally texted him. Meet me at the same diner. Tomorrow. Noon. Nathan arrived early and sat in the same booth, his coffee untouched, his knee bouncing under the table. Amanda walked in at 12:05 looking exhausted. She slid into the booth and dropped her bag on the seat. I've been through the files. Nathan leaned forward. And? They're real. The emails, the spreadsheets, the transaction logs. I had a forensic accountant look at them. Everything checks out. Nathan felt the air leave his lungs. So you're running the story? I'm running it. But I need you to understand something. Once this goes live, there's no taking it back. Vanguard's going to come after you with everything they have. Lawyers, PR teams. They'll try to discredit you, dig into your past, make you look like a liar. I don't care. You should. Because it's not just about you anymore. It's about everyone connected to this. Your son, your ex-wife, the source who gave you the files. Nathan swallowed hard. When does it go live? Tomorrow morning. Front page of the Sentinel's website. Print edition hit stands at 6 a.m. She pulled out a tablet and showed him a draft of the article. The headline read, Vanguard Technologies CEO accused of years-long financial fraud. Internal documents reveal cover-up. Nathan read through the piece. It was thorough, detailed, damning. Amanda watched him. You're sure about this? He looked up. I'm sure. She nodded and put the tablet away. Then we're doing this. After she left, Nathan sat in the diner for another 20 minutes, trying to process what was about to happen. Tomorrow, the truth would be out. Tomorrow, Vanessa Hale's empire would start to crumble. But tomorrow also meant retaliation. He drove home and found Jamie sitting on the couch, drawing. Hey, kid. Jamie looked up. Are you okay, Dad? Nathan sat down next to him. I will be. You've been acting weird. I know. I'm sorry. Jamie set down his crayon. Are we going to be okay? Nathan pulled him close. Yeah, buddy. We're going to be okay. He said it with as much confidence as he could muster, even though he wasn't sure he believed it. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He kept checking his phone, refreshing news sites, waiting for something to happen. At 3 a.m., he gave up and made coffee. He sat at the kitchen table in the dark, staring out the window, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. He thought about the day he'd been fired, the look on Vanessa's face, the security guards walking him out. He thought about Claire, handing him the flash drive with shaking hands. He thought about Jamie asking if they were going to be okay, and he thought about the choice he'd made, to fight back, to risk everything, to stand up in front of 200 people and tell the truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. At 6:07 a.m., his phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Vanguard Technologies CEO Vanessa Hale under investigation for corporate fraud. Nathan clicked the link and read Amanda's article. It was live. Every detail, every document, every email. The comments section was already filling up.
This is insane. I invested in Vanguard. If this is true, I'm ruined. Where's the SEC? Someone needs to investigate this now. Nathan set the phone down and exhaled. It was done. By 8 o'clock, the story had gone national. News outlets were picking it up. Business channels were running segments. Vanguard's stock was dropping. Nathan's phone started ringing. Reporters, lawyers, people he didn't know asking for comments. He ignored all of them. At 9, he got a call from a number he recognized. It was David Ortiz, the lawyer who'd threatened him with a lawsuit. Nathan answered. "What do you want?" "Mr. Cole, I'm calling to inform you that Vanguard Technologies is withdrawing its civil suit against you." Nathan sat up. "What?" "In light of recent developments, the company has decided not to pursue legal action at this time." "Why?" Ortiz's voice was tight. "That's all I'm authorized to say." The line went dead. Nathan stared at the phone, his heart pounding. They were backing down. An hour later, Greg called. "Nathan, you're not going to believe this." "What?" "Marcus Trent resigned. Just put out a statement saying he's stepping down effective immediately. Vanessa's on leave. The board's calling for a full audit." Nathan felt a surge of something he couldn't quite name. Relief. Vindication. Exhaustion. "Are you okay?" Greg asked. "Yeah, I think so." "You did it, man. You actually did it." Nathan hung up and sat on the couch, staring at the wall. He'd won. Or at least he'd survived. But it didn't feel like a victory yet. It felt like standing in the wreckage of something that used to be whole, trying to figure out what to do next. Jamie came out of his room, rubbing his eyes. "Why are you up so early?" Nathan smiled. "Couldn't sleep." "Can we have pancakes?" "Yeah, kid, we can have pancakes." He stood and went to the kitchen, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe. Over the next few days, the fallout continued. The SEC announced an investigation into Vanguard Technologies. Investors filed lawsuits. Helix Group pulled out of the merger, citing material misrepresentation of financial data. Vanessa Hale disappeared from public view. Her social media accounts went dark. Her penthouse was put up for sale. Marcus Trent hired his team of lawyers and refused to comment. And Nathan Cole became the unlikely face of corporate whistleblowing. He did one interview with Amanda, where he explained what had happened and why he'd done it. He kept it simple. He didn't grandstand. He didn't try to be a hero. "I just wanted people to know the truth," he said. The interview went viral. But Nathan didn't watch it. He was too busy trying to put his life back together. Lisa called him a week after the article went live. "I'm dropping the custody review." Nathan's chest tightened. "Why?" "Because I was wrong. About you. About what you were doing." Her voice softened. "I thought you were being reckless, but you were just trying to protect Jamie, and I didn't see that." "Thank you." "He's lucky to have you." Nathan didn't know what to say to that. After they hung up, he sat on the couch and let himself cry for the first time in weeks. A few days later, Nathan got a call from a law firm in the city. They wanted to talk to him about a wrongful termination suit against Vanguard. "We think you have a strong case," the lawyer said. "You were fired without cause. You were publicly defamed. You lost income. We can pursue damages." Nathan thought about it. "How long would it take?" "A year, maybe 2. Nathan sighed. "I don't want to spend the next 2 years of my life in court." "Mr. Cole, you could win a significant settlement." "I don't care about the money. I just want to move on." The lawyer was silent for a moment. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." He hung up and felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need a payout. He just needed his life back. And slowly, piece by piece, that's what he started to build. He found a new job 2 weeks later, a maintenance position at a hospital across town. The pay was better than Vanguard, and the people were kinder. On his first day, the supervisor shook his hand and said, "We're glad to have you." Nathan believed him. Jamie started doing better in school. He stopped asking if they were going to be okay. He started smiling more. And Nathan stopped waking up at 4 in the morning with his chest tight and his mind racing. He still thought about Vanessa sometimes.
about the wedding, about the look on her face when everything fell apart. But mostly, he thought about Jamie, about the life they were building, about the future that felt possible again. One night, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Jamie leaned against him and said, "Dad?" "Yeah, kid?" "You're a good dad." Nathan's throat tightened. "Thanks, buddy." "Even when things are hard." Nathan pulled him closer. "Especially when things are hard." They sat there together, and for the first time in a long time, Nathan felt like everything was going to be okay. 3 weeks after the article went live, Nathan was standing in the hospital's maintenance workshop, organizing tools on a pegboard, when his phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Claire. Can we talk?" Nathan stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, "When?" Her response came immediately. "Tonight, same coffee shop, 7 p.m. Nathan slipped the phone back into his pocket and returned to the pegboard, but his mind was already somewhere else. He hadn't heard from Claire since the day she'd handed him the flash drive. He'd assumed she'd buried herself so deep that no one would ever connect her to the leak. The fact that she was reaching out now meant something had changed. He finished his shift, picked Jamie up from after-school care, and dropped him off at Lisa's place. She'd been letting Nathan have more flexibility with the schedule since she'd dropped the custody review, and tonight he needed it. "I'll pick him up tomorrow after work," Nathan said. Lisa nodded. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, just need to take care of something." She didn't push, and Nathan was grateful for that. He arrived at the coffee shop at 10 to 7 and ordered a black coffee he didn't want. Claire walked in exactly on time, wearing a coat that was too big for her and a knit cap pulled low over her forehead. She looked thinner than before, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She sat down across from him without ordering anything. "Thanks for meeting me," she said quietly. "What's going on?" She glanced around the coffee shop as if checking to see if anyone was watching, then leaned forward. "They know it was me." Nathan's stomach dropped. "How?" "I don't know. Maybe they traced the files. Maybe someone saw us. But Marcus called me into his office 2 days before he resigned. He didn't say it outright, but he knew. He told me I was lucky he was leaving because if he wasn't, he'd make sure I never worked again." "Did he threaten you?" "Not directly." It was clear. She pulled her hands into her sleeves. "I thought it was over. I thought once he was gone, I'd be safe. But yesterday, I got a call from Vanguard's legal team. They're offering me a settlement." Nathan frowned. "A settlement for what?" "For my silence. They want me to sign an NDA. They're offering $200,000 if I agree never to talk about what happened. Not to the press, not to investigators, not to anyone. Are you going to take it?" Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. That's why I called you. I don't know what to do." Nathan sat back and studied her. She looked terrified, and he understood why. $200,000 was life-changing money for someone like her. It could pay off her loans, give her a fresh start, let her disappear. But it would also mean burying the truth. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want this to be over. I want to stop being scared." She wiped her eyes. "But if I take the money, it means they win. It means everything you did, everything we risked, it all gets swept under the rug. They're already under investigation. The SEC's involved. The truth is out. But I'm the only person who can testify about what really happened. If I sign that NDA, they can claim the documents were fabricated. They can say you stole them and altered them. They can twist the whole thing." Nathan took a sip of his coffee and let the bitterness sit on his tongue. "Then don't sign." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one who'll lose everything if this drags on." "I already lost everything, and I'm still here." Claire looked at him, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. Finally, she spoke. "If I don't sign, they'll come after me. They'll make my life hell." "Probably." "And you think I should do it anyway?" Nathan set his cup down. "I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. But I'll tell you this. The only reason I'm sitting here right now, the only reason I still have my son, is because I stopped letting them decide what my life was worth." Claire stared at the table. "I don't know if I'm that brave." "You gave me the flash drive. That took guts." "That was different. I didn't think it would go this far." Nathan leaned forward. "Claire, no matter what you choose, I'm not going to judge you. But if you take the money and walk away, You're going to spend the rest of your life wondering if you did the right thing, and that's a weight you'll carry forever." She didn't respond. They sat in silence for another few minutes. Then Claire stood. "I need to think about it." "Take your time." She pulled her coat tighter and walked out into the night. Nathan sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at his cold coffee, wondering if he'd said the right thing. He didn't know what Claire would decide. He didn't know if she'd be strong enough to turn down the money, but he hoped she would. Because the truth mattered, and someone needed to stand up for it. The next day, Nathan was fixing a malfunctioning elevator on the hospital's 4th floor when his phone rang. It was Amanda Cross. "Nathan, have you seen the news?" "No. What happened?" "Vanessa Hale just released a statement. She's claiming the documents are fake. She's saying you and an unnamed accomplice fabricated evidence to extort money from her." Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. "That's bullshit." "I know it is. But she's got a PR team spinning this hard. They're saying you're a disgruntled employee with a history of complaints. They're trying to discredit you before the investigation gets too deep." "What about the SEC? Don't they have the files?" "They do, but Vanessa's lawyers are arguing that the files could have been altered. Without a witness who can verify the documents are authentic, it's going to be hard to make the charges stick." Nathan closed his eyes. "Claire." "Who's Claire?" "The person who gave me the files. Vanguard's trying to buy her silence." Amanda was quiet for a moment. "If she signs an NDA, this whole thing could fall apart. Vanessa walks, Marcus walks, and you're left holding the bag." "I know. Can you talk to her, convince her to testify?" "I already tried. It's her decision." Amanda sighed. "Then we'd better hope she makes the right one." Nathan hung up and stared at the elevator doors, his mind racing. He'd thought the hard part was over. He'd thought exposing the truth would be enough. But Vanessa wasn't going down without a fight, and she had resources he couldn't compete with. He finished the repair and headed back to the workshop, but his phone buzzed again before he got there. Another unknown number. He answered. "Hello? Mr. Cole, this is Special Agent Karen Delgado with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'd like to ask you some questions about the Vanguard Technologies case." Nathan's pulse quickened. "Okay. Can you come to our office tomorrow, 10 a.m.? "Yeah, I'll be there." She gave him the address and hung up. Nathan sat down on a bench in the hallway and tried to steady his breathing. The SEC wanted to talk to him. That meant they were taking this seriously, but it also meant they needed more than just the documents. They needed his testimony. And if Claire didn't back him up, his word alone might not be enough. That night, after he picked Jamie up from Lisa's, Nathan sat at the kitchen table and went over everything he knew. He made notes, timelines, details he could remember from his time at Vanguard, anything that might help the investigators build a case. Jamie came out of his room in his pajamas and climbed onto Nathan's lap. "What are you doing?" "Just some paperwork, buddy." "Is it about work?" "Sort of." Jamie rested his head against Nathan's chest. "You work a lot." "I know. I'm sorry." "It's okay. Mrs. Park says you're a good dad." Nathan smiled and kissed the top of his head. "Mrs. Park's pretty smart." Jamie yawned. "Can we watch a movie tomorrow?" "Yeah, kid, we can watch a movie." After Jamie went to bed, Nathan sat in the dark living room staring at his phone. He wanted to call Claire to check in, to see if she'd made a decision, but he didn't. It wasn't his place to push her. She had to figure this out on her own. The next morning, Nathan put on the only button-down shirt he owned and drove to the SEC's regional office. It was downtown, in a glass building that looked like every other corporate tower in the city. He took the elevator to the 12th floor and gave his name to the receptionist. 10 minutes later, a woman in a navy blazer came out to meet him. "Mr. Cole? I'm Special Agent Delgado." She led him to a small conference room with a table, 3 chairs, and a recording device in the center. "Have a seat." Nathan sat. Delgado sat across from him and placed a folder on the table. "I'm going to record this conversation. Is that all right with you?" "Yeah." She hit a button on the recorder. "This is Special Agent Karen Delgado, interviewing Nathan Cole regarding the Vanguard Technologies investigation. Mr. Cole, can you state your full name for the record?" "Nathan Alexander Cole." "And you were employed by Vanguard Technologies as a maintenance worker?" "Yes." "Can you walk me through what happened on the night you were accused of accessing confidential files?" Nathan told her everything. The timeline, the water heater in the basement, The badge logs that didn't match his location, the meeting in HR, the firing. Delgado took notes as he spoke, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. "And how did you obtain the documents you provided to the press?" Nathan hesitated. "Someone gave them to me."
Who? I can't say. Mr. Cole, if you want us to move forward with this case, we need to verify the authenticity of those documents. That means we need to know where they came from. The person who gave them to me is scared. If I give you their name, Vanguard will retaliate. We can offer protection, whistleblower immunity. Nathan shook his head.
"It's not my decision to make. If they want to come forward, they will, but I'm not going to force them."
Delgado studied him for a long moment. You realize this makes our job a lot harder. I know. She closed the folder. All right, we'll be in touch if we need anything else. Nathan stood and left the office, his chest tight. He'd told the truth. He'd cooperated. But he knew it wasn't enough. Without Claire's testimony, the case could stall, and if that happened, Vanessa would walk.
He spent the rest of the day at work, trying to focus on broken faucets and faulty wiring, but his mind kept drifting. He thought about Claire, about the choice she was facing, about the weight of $200,000 versus the weight of her conscience. That evening, as he was driving home, his phone rang. It was Claire. "I'm not taking the money." Nathan pulled over to the side of the road. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Her voice was shaky but resolute. "I talked to a lawyer. He said if I testify, the SEC can protect me. And even if they can't, I'd rather deal with Vanguard's lawyers than spend the rest of my life knowing I helped them get away with it." Nathan exhaled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm terrified." "That's okay. You're doing the right thing." "I hope so." She hung up, and Nathan sat in his truck, staring at the steering wheel, feeling something loosen in his chest. It wasn't over, but it was moving in the right direction. 2 days later, the news broke that a former Vanguard employee had come forward to testify in the SEC investigation. Claire's name wasn't mentioned, but Nathan knew it was her. The article said the witness had provided corroborating evidence and was cooperating fully with investigators. Vanguard's stock dropped another 15%. Marcus Trent's lawyers released a statement denying all allegations and calling the investigation a witch hunt. And Vanessa Hale went silent. Nathan watched it all unfold from a distance, trying not to get pulled back into the chaos. He'd done his part. Now it was up to the investigators to do theirs. But a week later, something happened that pulled him back in. He was at home, making dinner for Jamie, when there was a knock at the door. He opened it and found a man in a suit standing in the hallway. "Nathan Cole?" "Yeah." The man handed him an envelope. "You've been served." Nathan's stomach dropped. He opened the envelope and scanned the first page. It was a defamation lawsuit filed by Vanessa Hale, claiming that Nathan had knowingly spread false information about her and Vanguard Technologies, resulting in reputational damage and financial loss. She was suing him for $5 million. Nathan stared at the paper, his hands shaking. "Dad?" Jamie's voice came from the kitchen. "Is dinner ready?" Nathan closed the door and set the envelope on the table. He couldn't afford a lawyer. He didn't have $5 million. He didn't even have $5,000. But Vanessa knew that. That's why she'd filed the suit. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to crush him. He called Amanda. "I just got served with a defamation lawsuit." "From Vanessa?" "Yeah." Amanda swore under her breath. "She's trying to intimidate you, make you back down, discredit you before the investigation wraps up. Is it going to work?" "Not if you fight it, but you'll need a lawyer." "I can't afford one." "Then find one who'll work pro bono. There are firms that take cases like this. You're a whistleblower. You've got a strong defense." Nathan rubbed his face. "I'm so tired, Amanda." "I know, but you can't stop now. Not when we're this close." She gave him the names of a few lawyers and hung up. Nathan stood in the kitchen, staring at the lawsuit, feeling the weight of it settle on his shoulders. Jamie came up beside him. "What's that?" "Just some paperwork." "You okay?" Nathan looked down at his son and forced a smile. "Yeah, kid. I'm okay." But as Jamie went back to the table, Nathan wasn't sure he believed it. Over the next few days, Nathan made calls. He reached out to the lawyers Amanda had recommended. Most of them were sympathetic but couldn't take the case. They were too busy. They didn't have the resources. They didn't want to go up against Vanessa Hale's legal team. Nathan was starting to lose hope when he got a call from a woman named Rachel Kim. She worked for a nonprofit legal organization that represented whistleblowers. "Mr. Cole, I've been following your case. I'd like to help," Nathan exhaled. "I can't pay you. I'm not asking you to. This is what we do. And frankly, your case is exactly the kind of fight we want to be in." "Why?" "Because people like Vanessa Hale think they can silence anyone who stands up to them, and we're here to prove them wrong." Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. "When can we start?" "Tomorrow. I'll file a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, and we'll countersue for malicious prosecution." Nathan hung up and sat down on the couch, his chest tight with something that felt almost like hope. That night, he slept better than he had in days. The legal battle dragged on for weeks. Motions, depositions, hearings. Nathan spent hours on the phone with Rachel, going over details, answering questions, preparing testimony. But through it all, the SEC investigation continued. And slowly, piece by piece, the case against Vanguard started to solidify. Marcus Trent was indicted on charges of securities fraud and conspiracy. He pleaded not guilty and hired a team of lawyers that made the evening news. Vanessa Hale was named as a co-conspirator, though no formal charges had been filed yet. And Claire's testimony became the linchpin of the prosecution's case. Nathan didn't see her again, but he heard through Amanda that she'd moved out of state, started a new job, and was trying to rebuild her life. He hoped she was okay. One evening, as Nathan was sitting at the kitchen table, his phone rang. It was Rachel. "We won." Nathan sat up. "What?" "The judge dismissed Vanessa's lawsuit, said it was frivolous. She's been ordered to pay your legal fees." Nathan felt the air leave his lungs. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. And we're moving forward with the countersuit. If we win, you could walk away with a significant settlement." Nathan closed his eyes. "I don't care about the money." "I know. But you earned it." After they hung up, Nathan sat in the dark apartment, staring at the wall. He'd won. Or at least, he'd survived. And for the first time in months, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, it was finally over. The weeks that followed felt strange to Nathan, like walking through a world that had shifted slightly off its axis. He went to work. He picked Jamie up from school. He made dinner and helped with homework and watched cartoons on the couch. But underneath all of it, there was a current he couldn't ignore, something unfinished, waiting to resolve itself. The SEC investigation moved slowly, the way all government processes did. Nathan heard updates through Rachel and Amanda, but mostly he tried to stay out of it. He'd given his testimony. He'd handed over everything he had. Now it was up to people in suits and offices to decide what happened next. But Vanessa Hale wasn't going quietly. 3 weeks after the judge dismissed her lawsuit, Nathan was at the hospital replacing a broken thermostat when his phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Vanessa Hale, files for bankruptcy, claims witch hunt destroyed her life. Nathan clicked the link and read the article. Vanessa had released a statement through her lawyers, claiming that the investigation had destroyed her reputation, cost her everything, and left her unable to pay her debts. She called Nathan a vindictive liar, and said the media had turned her into a villain without proof. The comments section was split. Half the people called her a fraud who deserved what she got. The other half said she was being railroaded by a jealous ex-employee. Nathan closed the browser and shoved his phone into his pocket. He didn't care what people said about him anymore. He'd stopped reading the comments weeks ago. But seeing Vanessa try to play the victim made something twist in his chest. She'd had everything: power, wealth, respect, and she'd thrown it all away because she couldn't stop lying. That night, after Jamie went to bed, Nathan sat on the couch with a beer he didn't really want and stared at the ceiling. He thought about the night he'd stood on that stage at the wedding, his hands shaking, his voice cracking, telling a room full of strangers the truth. He'd been terrified. He'd felt small and powerless and completely out of his depth. But he'd done it anyway, and that had made all the difference. The next morning, Rachel called. The SEC's moving forward with formal charges. Vanessa Hale and Marcus Trent are both being indicted on multiple counts of securities fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Nathan sat down at the kitchen table. When? The announcement's going out this afternoon. It's going to be big news. What does that mean for me? It means you're in the clear. The charges are based on the documents you provided in Claire's testimony. You've been officially classified as a whistleblower, which gives you legal protection. Vanguard can't come after you again. Nathan exhaled. So it's over. Not quite. The trial's going to take months, maybe a year, but your part in it is done. You did what you needed to do. After they hung up, Nathan sat at the table for a long time, staring at his coffee. He should have felt relieved. He should have felt vindicated. But all he felt was tired. He'd spent months fighting, months worrying, months wondering if he'd made the right choice. And now that it was finally over, he didn't know what to do with himself. Jamie came into the kitchen, his hair sticking up at odd angles. "Morning, Dad?" Nathan smiled. "Morning, kid. What do you want for breakfast? Can we have waffles?" "Yeah, we can have waffles." As Nathan pulled out the waffle iron and started mixing batter, Jamie climbed onto a chair and watched him. "Dad?" "Yeah? Are you happy?" Nathan paused, the whisk in his hand. "What do you mean?" "You've been sad a lot, but you smile more now." Nathan set the bowl down and looked at his son. "Yeah, kid. I'm happy." "Good, because I like it when you smile." Nathan's chest tightened. He crossed the kitchen and pulled Jamie into a hug. "I like it too." The indictment was announced that afternoon. Nathan watched the news coverage on his phone during his lunch break. The anchors talked about corporate greed, financial fraud, and the collapse of one of the state's biggest tech companies. They showed photos of Vanessa Hale in handcuffs being escorted into a federal courthouse. Marcus Trent was indicted separately and released on bail. Nathan turned off his phone and finished his sandwich in silence. That evening, Amanda called. "You see the news?" "Yeah." "How are you feeling?" Nathan leaned back on the couch. "Honestly, I don't know. I thought I'd feel something. Relief, maybe, but I just feel empty." "That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for months. Now that the fight's over, your body's trying to catch up." "Is it really over, though? For you?" "Yeah. Vanessa and Marcus are going to spend the next year in court. But you're done. You can move on." Nathan rubbed his face. "I don't even know what that looks like." "It looks like whatever you want it to. You've got a job. You've got your son. You've got your life back. That's not nothing." After they hung up, Nathan sat in the dark apartment and thought about what Amanda had said. He'd been so focused on surviving, on fighting, on proving he wasn't the person Vanessa had tried to make him out to be, that he hadn't thought about what came after. But now he had to. Over the next few weeks, Nathan settled into a routine that felt almost normal. He worked his shifts at the hospital. He spent his evenings with Jamie. He paid his bills on time. He stopped checking the news every 10 minutes. And slowly, the weight he'd been carrying started to lift. One Saturday morning, Lisa called and asked if she could take Jamie to a museum. Nathan said yes, and after they left, he found himself alone in the apartment with nothing to do. It was the first time in months he'd had a free day with no obligations, no fires to put out, no crises to manage. He cleaned the kitchen, he did laundry, he fixed the bathroom sink that had been dripping for weeks. And then he sat on the couch and didn't know what to do with himself. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Greg. "Hey man, some of us are grabbing beers tonight if you want to come." Nathan stared at the message. He hadn't socialized in months. He'd been so focused on survival that he'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist. He typed back, "Yeah, I'll be there." That night, Nathan met Greg and a few other former coworkers at a bar downtown. They shook his hand, clapped him on the back, and bought him drinks he didn't ask for. "You're a legend, man," one of them said. "Taking down Vanessa Hale like that?" Nathan shook his head. "I didn't take her down. She took herself down. I just made sure people knew about it." Still, that took guts. They talked for a while, swapping stories about Vanguard, laughing about old memories. Nathan realized how much he'd missed this. The easy companionship, the conversations that didn't revolve around lawsuits and investigations. But as the night went on, one of the guys leaned over and said something that stuck with Nathan. "I don't know if I could have done what you did. I've got a mortgage, kids in college. If I'd been in your position, I probably would have just kept my head down and moved on." Nathan took a sip of his beer. "I almost did, but I couldn't live with it." "Why not?" Nathan thought about that. "Because my son was watching. And I needed him to know that when someone tries to destroy you, you don't just roll over and take it. You fight back, even if it's hard, even if you're scared." The guy nodded slowly. "That's a hell of a lesson." Nathan shrugged. "It's the only one that matters." When he got home that night, Jamie was already asleep. Nathan stood in the doorway of his room, watching his son's chest rise and fall, and felt something settle inside him.
He'd done the right thing, not because it had worked out, not because he'd won, but because he'd refused to let fear make his decisions for him. And that was something Jamie would carry with him for the rest of his life. A month later, Rachel called with news about the countersuit. "Vanguard's offering a settlement. They want this to go away quietly." Nathan sat up. "How much?" $350,000. Nathan stared at the wall. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. It's not an admission of guilt, but it's enough to make your life a lot easier. You could pay off your debts. Put money aside for Jamie's college. Maybe even take a vacation." Nathan didn't know what to say. "Do you want to take it?" Rachel asked. "I don't know. What do you think?" "I think you've earned it. You lost your job, your reputation, and almost lost your son because of what they did to you. This is compensation for that. And if you don't take it, the case could drag on for another year with no guarantee you'll win more." Nathan rubbed his face. "I'll think about it." That night he talked to Jamie about it, in the only way you could talk to a 7-year-old about money. "If someone offered us a lot of money to make things easier, should we take it?" Jamie looked up from his drawing. "How much money?" "Enough that we wouldn't have to worry for a while." Jamie thought about that. "Would we still live here?" "Probably. But we could get new stuff, fix up the apartment, maybe go on a trip." Jamie's eyes lit up. "Can we go to Disney?" Nathan laughed. "Yeah, kid, we can go to Disney." The next day he called Rachel and told her to accept the settlement. 2 weeks later, the money hit his account. Nathan stared at the balance on his phone screen, not quite believing it was real. He'd never had that much money in his life. He didn't know what to do with it, so he started small. He paid off his credit card. He bought Jamie new clothes and a box of crayons that wasn't worn down to nubs. He fixed the leak in the ceiling that had been dripping into a bucket for 6 months. He took Jamie to a nice restaurant where they didn't have to look at the prices on the menu, and then he put the rest away. For emergencies. For Jamie's future. For the life they were going to build. But even with the money in the bank and the lawsuit dismissed, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unfinished. The trial loomed ahead, and with it, the final chapter of a story he'd never wanted to be part of. The trial started 3 months later on a cold Tuesday morning in November. Nathan wasn't required to testify. His deposition was enough. But he followed the coverage online anyway. He couldn't help it. For months, this had consumed his life, and now it was playing out in a courtroom downtown while he replaced light fixtures and unclogged drains at the hospital. Amanda kept him updated. She texted him links to articles, called him during her lunch breaks to tell him what the lawyers were saying, what arguments were being made, how the jury was reacting. Vanessa's defense team was expensive and aggressive. They blamed Marcus for everything. They claimed Vanessa had been deceived, manipulated, kept in the dark about the financial irregularities. They painted her as a visionary leader betrayed by her CFO, a woman whose only crime was trusting the wrong person. Marcus's lawyers took the opposite approach. They claimed Vanessa was the mastermind, that she'd orchestrated the fraud and used Marcus as her enforcer. They presented emails, text messages, recorded phone calls that painted a picture of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing and didn't care who got hurt. The prosecution methodically tore both narratives apart. They presented the documents Nathan had provided. They called Claire to the stand, and she testified for 2 days, walking the jury through how she'd been ordered to falsify records, how she'd cloned Nathan's badge, how Marcus had threatened her job if she didn't cooperate. Nathan watched a clip of Claire's testimony online. She looked terrified but steady. She answered every question clearly, her voice shaking but never breaking. He sent her a text afterward, even though he knew she probably wouldn't respond. "You did good." She didn't reply. But he hoped she saw it. As the trial dragged on, Nathan tried to focus on his life. He took Jamie to school every morning, picked him up every afternoon, helped him with his math homework at the kitchen table. They went to the park on weekends. They watched movies. They lived. But at night, after Jamie was asleep, Nathan found himself reading articles about the trial,
watching news segments, trying to piece together what was happening in that courtroom. One evening, about 5 weeks into the trial, Amanda called. The prosecution rested today. Defense starts presenting their case tomorrow. How's it looking?
Good. I think good.
The jury's been paying attention. They've seen the evidence, but you never know. Vanessa's lawyers are good. They might be able to create enough doubt.
What happens if they walk? Amanda was quiet for a moment. Then they walk, and you move on anyway. Nathan closed his eyes. I don't know if I can do that. You won't have to. I've been in that courtroom. I've seen the jury's faces. They're not buying what Vanessa's selling. I hope you're right.
I am. Trust me. But trusting felt hard. Nathan had learned over the past year that the world didn't always work the way it should, that justice wasn't guaranteed. The powerful people got away with terrible things all the time. He'd done everything he could. He'd told the truth. He'd provided the evidence. He'd stood up when it would have been easier to stay down. But none of that meant he'd win. The defense presented their case over 2 weeks. They called character witnesses who testified about Vanessa's philanthropy, her leadership, her commitment to innovation. They called financial experts who argued the numbers were open to interpretation, that what the prosecution called fraud was actually aggressive but legal accounting practices. They tried to discredit Claire, suggesting she'd fabricated evidence because she was angry about being passed over for a promotion. They tried to discredit Nathan, painting him as a disgruntled employee with a grudge. Nathan read about it online and felt his jaw tighten, but he didn't respond. He didn't issue statements or give interviews. He just kept working, kept living, kept showing up for Jamie. After 6 weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. Nathan was at work when he got the text from Amanda. Jury's deliberating, could be hours, could be days. He slipped his phone into his pocket and went back to fixing a broken ice machine in the cafeteria. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Nathan barely slept. He went to work, came home, made dinner, put Jamie to bed, and then sat on the couch staring at his phone, waiting for news. On the 3rd day, just after lunch, Amanda called. They have a verdict. Nathan's heart stopped. When?
Reading it now. I'm in the courthouse. Hold on. Nathan heard voices in the background, the rustle of papers. Then silence. Then Amanda's voice, quiet and steady. Guilty. Nathan couldn't breathe. Vanessa Hale. Guilty on 8 counts of securities fraud. Marcus Trent. Guilty on 6 counts. The judge just thanked the jury and dismissed them. Sentencing is in 2 months.
Nathan sat down on a bench in the hospital hallway. He pressed the phone to his ear and felt something break open inside him. Nathan? You there? Yeah, I'm here. You did it. You actually did it. Nathan closed his eyes. We did it. No, this was you. You're the one who stood up. You're the one who wouldn't let them bury it. After they hung up, Nathan sat on that bench for a long time. People walked past him, nurses, doctors, patients, and he didn't move. He thought about the day he'd been fired, the look on Vanessa's face, the security guards walking him out. He thought about the wedding, the documents scattered across the stage, the chaos that followed. He thought about all the nights he'd lain awake, terrified he'd made the wrong choice, terrified he'd lose Jamie, terrified the truth wouldn't be enough. And now it was over. Guilty. When Nathan got home that evening, Jamie was at the kitchen table drawing. Hey, Dad. Nathan set down his keys and crossed the room. He knelt down next to Jamie's chair and pulled him into a hug. Whoa, you okay? Nathan held him tight. Yeah, kid, I'm okay. You sure? I'm sure. Jamie hugged him back and Nathan closed his eyes and let himself feel it. Relief, exhaustion, something close to peace. 2 months later, on a gray January morning, Vanessa Hale and Marcus Trent were sentenced. Nathan didn't go to the courthouse. He didn't watch the coverage. He was at the park with Jamie, pushing him on the swings, listening to him laugh. But that evening, after Jamie was in bed, Nathan opened his laptop and read the news. Vanessa Hale, 12 years in federal prison. Marcus Trent, 10 years. The judge had called their actions a calculated betrayal that harmed employees, investors, and the integrity of the financial system. He said they'd shown no remorse, no accountability, and no regard for the people whose lives they'd destroyed. Nathan read the article twice, then closed his laptop. It was done. Over the next few weeks, Nathan noticed something shifting inside him. The anger he'd carried for so long, the anger at Vanessa, at Marcus,
at the system that had tried to crush him, it was fading. He didn't wake up thinking about them anymore. He didn't check the news to see if there were appeals or updates. He didn't imagine what they were doing, didn't wonder if they understood what they'd done wrong. He just lived his life.
One Saturday afternoon, a few weeks after the sentencing, Nathan and Jamie were sitting on the couch watching a movie when Jamie looked up at him. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure, kid." "Why did those people try to hurt you?" Nathan paused the movie. He'd known this question would come eventually. He just hadn't known when. "Because they did something wrong," Nathan said carefully. "And they needed someone to blame so they wouldn't get caught. But you didn't do anything wrong."
No, I didn't. So why did they pick you? Nathan thought about how to answer that. Because they thought I was small. They thought no one would believe me or care about me. They thought I'd just disappear. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Jamie thought about that for a moment. I'm glad you didn't disappear. Nathan's throat tightened. Me too, buddy. Did you get them back? I told the truth, and the truth got them. Jamie nodded slowly, as if filing that information away for later. Then he leaned back against Nathan and unpaused the movie. Nathan wrapped an arm around him and realized something. This was the lesson. Not the fight, not the victory, but this. Sitting on a couch with his son, watching a movie, existing in a world where telling the truth mattered. That was what he wanted Jamie to remember. A few weeks later, Amanda called and asked if Nathan would do one final interview. A retrospective piece looking back on everything that had happened. They met at the same diner where it had all started. "So," Amanda said, setting her recorder on the table, "how does it feel now, a year later? Vanessa's in prison. Marcus is in prison. You've got your settlement. You've got your life back." Nathan stirred his coffee. "It feels quiet." "Quiet?" "Yeah, I spent so long fighting that I forgot what it felt like to just exist. And now that's all I do. I go to work, I take care of my kid, I fix things. It's boring, but it's mine." Amanda smiled. "That doesn't sound boring. That sounds like you won." "Maybe, but it doesn't feel the way I thought it would." "How did you think it would feel?" Nathan thought about that. "I don't know, bigger, I guess. More dramatic. Like there'd be this moment where everything clicked into place and I'd feel like a hero or something." "And you don't?" "No, I just feel like a guy who did what he had to do. And now I'm tired." Amanda leaned back. "You know what I think? I think that's exactly what a hero looks like. Someone who does what needs to be done and then goes home and makes dinner for their kid." Nathan shook his head. "I'm not a hero." "Maybe not. But you're something. You're proof that one person standing up can make a difference, even when they're scared, even when they have everything to lose." After the interview, Nathan drove home and thought about what Amanda had said. He didn't feel like proof of anything. He felt like a tired maintenance worker who'd gotten lucky, but maybe that was enough. That night, after Jamie went to bed, Nathan sat at the kitchen table and wrote something down. Not for publication, not for anyone else, just for himself. He wrote about what he'd learned, about fear and courage and the difference between the two, about how the truth didn't always win, but it was worth fighting for anyway, about how the people who seemed untouchable weren't, about how one person could matter, even when the world told them they didn't. And he wrote about Jamie, about the life he wanted to give him, about the lessons he hoped he was teaching just by refusing to give up. When he finished, he folded the paper and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday he'd show it to Jamie. Maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he'd lived it. Months passed, then a year, then 2. Nathan kept working at the hospital. Jamie grew taller, smarter, funnier. They went to Disney like Nathan had promised. They moved to a bigger apartment. They built a life that was ordinary and unremarkable and exactly what Nathan had fought for. One afternoon, 3 years after the trial, Nathan was walking through the hospital lobby when he saw a news segment on the television mounted in the waiting area. It was a story about corporate whistleblowers, about people who'd stood up to powerful companies and exposed corruption. His name flashed on the screen for a few seconds, along with a photo from the wedding. A woman sitting in the waiting room looked up at the TV, then looked at Nathan. "Hey, isn't that you?" Nathan glanced at the screen, then smiled. "Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was brave, what you did."
Nathan shrugged. I just told the truth. Still, a lot of people wouldn't have. Nathan thought about that as he walked away. She was right. A lot of people wouldn't have. And for a long time, he'd been one of them. He'd been the guy who kept his head down, who didn't make waves, who just tried to survive. But somewhere along the way, he'd realized that survival wasn't enough, that there were things worth risking everything for, that fear was real and valid and could paralyze you if you let it, and that the only way to beat fear was to act anyway. That evening, Nathan picked Jamie up from soccer practice. Jamie was 12 now, gangly and full of energy, talking nonstop about the game and the goal he'd almost scored. Dad, did you see when I passed to Marcus? He was wide open, but he missed. Nathan smiled. I saw. You set him up perfectly. They drove home, and Jamie kept talking, and Nathan listened, and everything felt exactly right. Later after dinner, Jamie did his homework at the kitchen table while Nathan cleaned up. As Nathan wiped down the counter, Jamie looked up. Dad? Yeah? Do you ever think about what happened? You know, with your old job? Nathan paused. Sometimes. Why? We're learning about ethics in school, about doing the right thing even when it's hard, and I told my teacher about what you did. She said you were an example of moral courage. Nathan set down the dish towel. What do you think? Jamie thought about it. I think you're just my dad, but I'm proud of you. Nathan's throat tightened. Thanks, kid. Did it scare you, standing up to those people? Yeah, it terrified me. But you did it anyway. Yeah. Why? Nathan sat down across from him. Because you were watching, and I needed you to know that when someone tries to make you small, when they try to silence you or destroy you, you don't have to let them. You can fight back, even if you're scared, even if you might lose. Jamie nodded slowly. Do you think I'd do that? If it happened to me? I think you'd do what felt right, and that's all anyone can do. They sat there for a moment, and Nathan realized this was it. This was what it had all been for. Not the verdict, not the settlement, but this conversation, this moment where his son looked at him and saw someone worth being proud of. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Nathan stood in the doorway of his room and watched him breathe, the same way he had 1,000 times before. He thought about all the nights he'd stood here terrified he'd lose him, terrified he wasn't enough, terrified the truth wouldn't matter, but it had mattered, and he hadn't lost him, and that was everything. Nathan closed the door quietly and walked to the kitchen. He poured himself a glass of water and stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. The world kept turning. People kept rising and falling. Somewhere, someone else was facing an impossible choice, wondering if they should speak up or stay silent, wondering if one person could make a difference. Nathan hoped they'd choose to speak, because the truth mattered, justice mattered, and sometimes, when you felt the smallest and most powerless, that was exactly when your voice mattered most. He'd learned that the hard way, but he'd learned it, and he'd carry it with him for the rest of his life. Nathan finished his water, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow he'd wake up at 6. He'd make breakfast for Jamie. He'd go to work and fix whatever was broken. He'd come home and help with homework and make dinner and watch TV. He'd live his quiet, ordinary, unremarkable life, and it would be enough. Because in the end, that was the real victory. Not the headlines or the guilty verdicts or the settlement money, but the fact that he was still here, still standing, still choosing every day to be the kind of person his son could be proud of. That was what mattered, and nothing anyone could do would ever take that away from him.